James Joyce's short story collection, Dubliners, published in 1914, delves into the theme of epiphany while concurrently addressing the pressing political and social issues of contemporary Ireland. This collection follows a structural design mirroring the phases of human life, commencing with stories centered on childhood, progressing to tales that grapple with adult concerns, and ultimately culminating in narratives exploring old age and mortality. In The Sisters, an unnamed young boy anticipates the impending demise of Father Flynn, a local priest, following the man's third stroke. Despite the boy's friendship with the priest, he is taken aback when an intrusive friend of his aunt and uncle labels Father Flynn as peculiar. After Father Flynn's passing, the boy visits the priest's sisters, who contemplate the uncertain future now that their caregiving duties have concluded. An encounter introduces another young boy who recounts the illicit adventures of reading detective and Western stories with his classmates, defying the disapproval of the priests at school. Weary of make-believe games and yearning for a genuine escapade, the boy and his friend, Mahoney, decide to skip school and embark on an exploration of Dublin. During their journey, they encounter an elderly man in a field, initially finding him intriguing until his frequent references to corporal punishment sour their enthusiasm. In Araby, a teenage boy harbors affection for a local girl, the sister of his friend, Mangan. Their first interaction occurs when she inquires if he plans to attend the Araby bazaar. He pledges to bring her a souvenir from the event. However, upon arriving at Araby on the closing night, he encounters disappointment as he watches the stall shutter down, feeling unwelcome by the proprietor, and ultimately overwhelmed by a sense of hopelessness. The titular character in Evelyn is a young woman who has lost her mother, with her brothers having moved away, leaving her alone with her abusive father. She holds a job she despises. Evelyn's life takes a turn when she meets Frank, and they initiate a romantic involvement. Frank extends an invitation for her to elope with him to South America. At the dock, she stands frozen, her gaze locked on Frank as he's engulfed by a surging crowd, his voice imploring, "Come." In the story After the Race, we follow Jimmy, a young man of considerable means, as he becomes entangled with a group of international friends. Despite his own wealth, Jimmy finds himself struggling to keep pace with his more affluent companions. A staggering loss of money in a card game forces Jimmy to confront the stark reality that he doesn't belong in their league. Two Gallants narrates the lives of Corley and Lenehan, two men in their 30s who cling to a youthful, carefree existence, working sporadically and dedicating their time to revelry and pursuing women. Corley confides in Lenehan about his scheme to persuade a housemaid he's been courting to steal for him, leaving Lenehan contemplative about the merits of maturing and settling down. In the boarding house, Bob Dorand resides in the stern and imposing boarding house of Ms. Mooney. Engaging in an affair with Ms. Mooney's daughter, Polly, he secretly hopes for Ms. Mooney's intervention. Ms. Mooney bides her time, strategically applying pressure on Doran. Fearing public humiliation if the affair comes to light, Doran capitulates, agreeing to marry Polly. A Little Cloud introduces us to Little Chandler, who reunites with his old friend Gallagher, a journalist leading a thrilling life in London. Tormented by remorse over his own safe and unremarkable existence, a good job, a loving family, and a comfortable home, Chandler dreams of becoming a poet. Yet, upon returning home, he reconciles with the comfort of his own life, shedding the weight of his impractical fantasies. Counterparts revolves around Farrington, an embittered middle-aged man who covertly escapes work every day to drown his sorrows in alcohol, often facing reprimands from his boss. One evening, he joins friends on a pub crawl, but the more he imbibes, the more his unhappiness grows. Upon returning home, he vents his frustrations on his son, using a flimsy pretext to lash out. Clay offers insight into Maria, a middle-aged woman employed at a laundry. Maria has been invited to a party at the home of a man she once cared for when he was a child. She purchases a cake with the intention of bringing it to the gathering, but inadvertently leaves it behind on the tram. Troubled by this ominous incident, she decides to attend the event nonetheless. During a party game, her disquiet deepens when she draws a lump of clay, a symbol associated with death. In a painful case, we encounter Mr. Duffy, a bachelor who forms a close friendship with Mrs. Sinico, a woman trapped in an unhappy marriage. When she hints at the possibility of a romantic relationship, he abruptly terminates their connection. For years later, he discovers her tragic descent into alcoholism and eventual demise, burdened by overwhelming guilt for having abandoned their friendship. The narrative in Ivy Day in the committee room revolves around political volunteers who gather after a day of canvassing to engage in discussions about politics and Irish nationalism. Despite their internal divisions and squabbles over various issues, a recitation of a poem about Charles Parnell briefly unites them in a moment of shared sentiment. In A Mother, Mrs. Carney arranges for her daughter to perform at a series of concerts. However, when the concerts are cancelled due to lackluster interest, Mrs. Carney adopts an overbearing stance, demanding her daughter be compensated in accordance with their contract. Regrettably, her actions shatter any hopes of her daughter's future success in the musical realm. Grace presents the story of Tom Kernan, once a respected businessman who has succumbed to alcoholism. Following a drunken fall down a flight of stairs, his friends gather to offer assistance, even attending a church service to pray for his recovery. Finally, in The Dead, Gabriel Conroy and his wife journey to attend a party where Conroy is slated to deliver a brief speech. Although he experiences awkward and confrontational encounters at the event, his speech is well received. Later, his wife confesses to having had a previous lover, leading him to question his own existence and the meaning of his life. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.